Hi everyone, here I would like to show how to do a storyboard and what is important to understand when you're doing a film review. As you can see, I chose the movie The Shining, and it's a horror movie, and there are some shots which actually show that. By just looking at several shots, you can understand that it's not a comedy or something else. So I start drawing up with the first shot, and it's a wide shot. As you can see, the camera is showing the landscape. Usually wide shot is used to introduce the environment and character in relation to that environment. And in this example, in the first shot, we see the car moving into that house, and through this kind of huge environments, through the mountains and the forest. And then we see the house, then the colors become much more colder. We see the action, so we can clearly see the character, but we can also see where he's moving, and that's the point of this shot. And if you want to show the movements of the camera and of the character, you can do it with arrows. I also put some environment. It's not important to put everything, but it's important to do composition work, so you have to analyze what's important in the scene. And to understand what's important is basically to try to eliminate stuff one by one and imagine it in your head, whether it's important or not. In this shot, in the third shot, we can see that the guy is throwing an axe, and that's the main idea of the shot. So we don't have to show the wide shot of the environment, we just have to show him and an axe. So that's why they chose semi-close-up or the mid-shot, so that we can see the character and the action. And as you can see that I made my character a little bit smaller in relation to the axe. That's really important because we want to show that axe is huge and it's not a toy, and it's very dangerous. I also input some environment stuff such as window and other things, but you have to keep it simple. As you can see, I also analyzed the light in the scene, and the light is actually making it more scary because it's a down-up light. So you can sketch it up with some pencil and other brushes or something, or you can just ignore that, but just keep in your head that the colors, the tone are really important in your film study. Right now we're just focusing on the what's in the shot and why the shot is constructed like that. The mid shot can show not only the face, but also the body movements and the gestures. There are two types of cameras. A camera that shows the perspective of the view of a certain character, which is POV, or just a spy camera, as in the second example where the people are sitting in the kitchen, for example. And that's really important to take into consideration because that changes the feeling of the shot. Now this shot shows the little boy get scared, and we see him dead in the center. This is something that this director used a lot in this movie, by the way. Whenever he wants to make it unsettling for you, he puts the character dead in the center. It's a compositional choice, and it's not very common, although it is used in many films from time to time in order to add additional emotional layer. In contrast, the dialogue scene will probably not use this kind of dead center shots. You can see there are two cameras that play a role of POV of the point of view of those guys. As you can see, the first camera will look something like this, where we see the back of one character and the front full face of another character in the shots, and they're talking with each other. And the second shot, or basically if you want to show another guy's POV, say for example one said hi, and you want to show another one response to that, you will turn on the second camera and it will look something like this. So the symmetry is used in this shot as well. It is used in many shots. This shot is actually a little bit more complicated than previous shots. Here we see the framing. The framing is basically, if you take into consideration the space that you already have, which is 16 by 9, a full frame, it's a frame. But there's another framing that is created by the table or the chair or whatever object is in the scene obscuring the camera. And in this case, the table is creating this kind of perspective and is basically locking up the characters or trapping up the characters into this box. And as you can see, I'm sketching up the characters very quick, basically showing that they are scared and one comforting another one. You can see there's a lot of center shots, and then we see a very unusual shot and very complicated one where we have a lot of framing, also reflection, the lines, the perspective, and a spy camera. So I started up with drawing up the main guy, who is a little bit closer to us, and I put him in by the rule of thirds onto the right, and then I drew the framing. And that's a really important thing in the shot, because framing is actually leading our eye to that little kid that's standing far, far away. And if there was not any framing, then probably many other different objects would confuse our attention. But this is a really interesting decision. It's almost like blocking the little guy into that frames. The main character's arm is also pointing at the child, so what's really unsettling is the reflection that we see on the left, because all of our focus is on that child, but our periphery vision is also seeing the reflection of that creepy dad character, and that creeps us out even more. Now I add a little more lines that display the perspective, but overall keep it simple. Now let's look at our examples, at the work that you sent it to me. So here I don't quite understand whether it's a top view or a perspective view, because if you look at the characters, they're looking at us, but if you look at the table, it is in the perspective. So if you want to keep your camera pointing from the top view, so if it's a top view, you basically have to keep the characters flat. So I just draw the characters from the top view. You can also just Google some images that might help you to make it look like from the top view. We will only see maybe a nose, hands, hair, and that's it. The table is gonna be flat. We will not see its bottom. That's easy to understand. I guess it's logical. But you have to use that logic when you're sketching. You can't just randomly sketch it. So always think of what is going to be visible, what is not, to make it look like what you have in mind. And you can also Google some stuff, like I'm Googling some family sitting near the kitchen table. So you just have to do some research to find something that is closer to what you want to illustrate. And in this case, I'm doing a perspective shot. So maybe you actually wanted to show the perspective. So how do you show the perspective? Now, first, of course, I drew a table, so that is a reference for me. And then I draw the characters. Now, the characters on the left is looking a little bit small, so I have to scale it up a bit. So whenever you are doing a shot, you always have to question yourself, what is important in this shot? So basically, go to your script and find the line you're trying to visualize. Say, for example, it's a line where the character is tossing on the salt to another character who is sitting with his cell phone turned on. So in this shot, we don't have to show the faces, we don't have to show anything else. It's just the action of tossing the salt to another character. Why not taking a close-up of that action? But before, what should be before this shot? Well, if this shot is about throwing up the salt, then maybe the previous shot should be about the girl or the guy asking for the salt. That would be logical. So that's why I draw her close-up, sitting and watching into the cell phone while also saying, "Pass the salt, please." And then we see the salt passed on to her. And then maybe the shot that shows both of the character, it's like a comedic resolution. So basically before, so beginning, middle, and end. And the end is we see that they both chatting or looking into the cell phone, but the salt is just sitting in the middle of the shot, in the middle of the table, and she doesn't take it. So basically they both ignore everything that's happened around themselves. So right now I'm drawing up the top view for me to schematically understand where can I put my camera and what those camera will do to me. So like what's the purpose of those camera? Like I showed at the beginning, there could be a camera of point of view. There could be a spy camera, which is the third shot where we see both of the characters. There might be a close-up shot or the close-up camera of the salt and the hands. And there's a lot of other possibilities. But before you actually do a schematic thing, you have to understand what's the purpose of the shots. So whenever you do a storyboard, always ask yourself what part of the script you are doing, and take the main action or the main feeling out of that script and try to visualize it. And then ask yourself, how can you do it so that the audience can understand it clearer without actually focusing on many things instead of focusing on the one thing. So keep it simple, always reference, Google Images, research what you're trying to say visually, and then try to do some thumbnailing. So don't just do a clear version, but do a thumbnailing before actually doing a clear version. Because you can make several thumbnails and then say, well, I don't like this one or that one, and then just pick one that you like, and then do a clean version of that thumbnail. So that concludes the part about visual storytelling, and see you later.